Thank you, Oliver. Vincent and Mitran.
Hi, Oliver. I find our president a pathological and an outright coward for getting or for going to Trump to go and apply his diplomacy and so on. That would show he's just actually going to kowtow to him, Trump, whilst Trump has made him quit the AGOA. How can you go that? Or can you do that in the first place? No, man. Enough, it's enough with Trump. Let's stand on our own position and organize ourselves as a country financially and economically. Thanks. It's Willie Nkuma.
Yeah, except, Willie, America is responsible for 600,000 jobs in South Africa. It is no small cry to just say we can ignore America and ignore Trump as a consequence of that. It's not cowardice. Perhaps strategically the timing might be of question, but it's certainly not cowardice to want to engage in reconciliatory geopolitical engagements. It's important. It literally is the basis and the underpinning of all of our diplomatic engagements across the world, not just with America. 086 000 2032. We're going to take a short break. On the other side of this, we continue with the open line.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric, mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
The Bees are fairly impressed with their run this season, but they want to win at home to concretize a top half position.
That's a crack. Oh, what a crack. That's Brentford for you. There you go.
Yet the Cottagers want to be remembered for an away win during their penultimate game of the season.
Hey! What an introduction!
Harry Wilson makes it 2-1 to Fulham. Now go home! Off you go!
This is the Premier League. Witness the mouth-watering clash between Brentford FC and Fulham FC on Sunday 18 May at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Listening to Oliver Dixon on SAFM.
This extra strong thing just made me realize that there's a real strong divide in the age gap of SAFM listeners. Well, you have some really, really old listeners. You also have some really, really young listeners, which I think is a good thing for us, which is a really, really good thing. Cross-generational conversations is what they call them. 086 000 2032. Let's speak to Mr. D out in the Eastern Cape. Mr. D, good morning.
Morning, Oliver and the listeners.
Morning, go for it.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go for it.
Yeah, I would just like to comment on the price of the rugby tickets which you referred to this morning. I think it really sounds ridiculous. It sounds like a rip-off.
Sorry, just speak a little bit louder. Say that again.
Yeah, I'm saying it sounds ridiculous. It sounds like a rip-off. I mean, 3,000 rand for a low-profile game like South Africa against Italy or whatever nation, other nation that's not well known in rugby. It really sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. We joke about it, but it really should not be that the national team is this inaccessible to its supporters from watching and attending its games and stadiums.
Yeah.
It can't be. Absolutely can't be.
Yeah, but you know what? The thing is this. We as a consumers ultimately has the power in our hands when it comes to things like this. Because if somebody tries to market or sell something to you that's overvalued, if you refuse to buy that thing, soon after that, you'll see how the price of that thing comes down. That product or service.
Except, Mr. D, that's not what's going to happen, right? There are at least 60,000 South Africans who have that 3,000 rand and are willing to spend it. I'm scrolling through Twitter, and I'm already seeing people, some of whom are people I know, who are bemoaning the fact that they just paid that price. The stadiums are going to sell out. It's certainly not going to signal to SARU that the supporters are unhappy. To them, as long as they sell out the stadium, they would have made their money. They're happy, right? We're going to continue living with the angle of the ticket prices being that high. The reality is, if people want something badly enough, they're going to pay for it.
No, but the thing is that then at the end of the day, you only have yourself to blame. If you pay for something that is clearly overvalued, think about what worthwhile other options you've got for that money.
Yeah, look,
what you could have done with it by blowing it on something.
Look, I'm not saying that I'm not saying the tickets are overvalued. I don't know what the value of the Springbok as a brand is. What I'm saying is that the ticket prices are expensive and it makes it inaccessible to ordinary South Africans, right?
For me, it really sounds overvalued. It sounds definitely.
Okay.
If you look at the state of our economy, especially if you compare it to that, and to the average salaries of most people in the country, how many people can honestly say to me that they can afford that?
Okay.
And you know what? Another just the last.
Just lastly, I do have a few more callers. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that I think is overvalued in this country is cars.
Oh yeah, but that's been a long-standing problem. But thanks a lot, Mr. D. Appreciate your call. 086 000 2032. Tweet me. Let me know. Do you think the ticket prices of the Springboks are overvalued? Something can be overvalued and not expensive, and something can be expensive but still undervalued, right? Value and expense are not the same question necessarily. And the Springboks are the best rugby team in the world. For all we know, the true value of a Springbok ticket might be 10,000 rand. But the price of rugby tickets shouldn't be priced at a point of what the value of the team is. It should be priced at the point of what can the average supporter of the team afford. That should be the basis upon which prices are determined. Zoe in Konge, good morning.
Good morning, Oliver.
Good morning, go for it.
I didn't get it. On the ticket thing, let me start there. No, I agree with you, Manto. That is too exorbitant, 3,000. Even half of it will still be too exorbitant. Even 1/3 of the 3,000. It's too much.
By the way, as I'm speaking to you, I just see now that the test between the Boks and Italy that I just bemoaned has been sold out. And it's not even an hour yet. The tickets have been on sale for 50 minutes and the game is sold out.
Where is it going to be played?
I'm not sure. I think that might be at Loftus either or in Gqeberha.
No, it has always been expensive, even in the 80s when the ticket to a football match, a soccer match was about 10 rand or something like that. The rugby was already above 75 or 100 rand.
Yeah,
but no, this 3,000, that's too much. No, mine is just a little one. Did you hear about the appointment of a Zimbabwean on Robben Island?
No, I didn't hear about it.
Yeah, there's a huge furore I had here on SAFM about the SACTP and other organizations crying that no, we should not elect somebody to be a senior heritage officer in an institution like Robben Island, or must be careful where we put foreigners. So I wanted to hear your views. I thought maybe you knew, but
what has the person been appointed as?
A senior heritage officer.
How many heritage specialists in South Africa do you think we have?
No, there's no shortage of those.
No, there actually is. There actually is. Banks are looking for heritage specialists to manage their heritage assets endowments, right? It's a specialized skill. It's not a common skill. It may sound common to run a museum, but it's actually not a common skill. It really is specialized and expert level skills. But thanks for that, Zoe. I appreciate it. Tina in Limpopo. Tina, good morning.
Yes, Oliver, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Tina. You're here to give us an update on the meeting you had with IPET. Good morning. Go for it.
Yes, yesterday, Mr. Loto came. She took pictures of the birth certificate that I have of my child that I say that he's registered under somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, she said that she will have that investigated because 2 of my children are using South African documents and they are not registered under me because I'm using a passport.
Mm.
And then the social worker, Paulina, we went to her office and her supervisor was there, Stella, and they blatantly refused to give me any documents that I can produce even to my family should something happen to me that says my child is with them. And we went to see the warrant officer who was handling this attempted murder case. He says that he has never seen Paulina, never talked to Paulina. He knows nothing about this social worker. So that means the problem is with the social worker, Paulina. So they say they are granting me access to the child. I say you cannot just do that by mouth because we've been having this mouth thing. Now is the hearsay who says what, and we're fighting over it. What I want is something on paper and the reasons why he has been holding to my child
Tina,
for 1.5 years.
Do you have legal representatives?
No, I'm representing myself. That's the issue. And yeah, it's a very big case because I say that attempted murder case, I want it reopened because it was cooked by the police and they were covering up something. I was beaten inside the school where I used to sell. I was accused of killing children and selling drugs. Why am I taken away?
Yeah, can I recommend, Tina, because it sounds like it's getting even more and more complicated. Can I maybe advise you to approach an organization like Pro Bono, for instance, to perhaps have them to represent you? Or I see you calling us from Limpopo. The law clinic at the University of Limpopo does incredible work as well. Perhaps also approach them at the law clinic and see if they can perhaps assist you with this, because fighting this by yourself without legal representation may take forever to come to conclusion. And I don't think it is a very easy case, and I do think that it's going to drag on for much longer if you don't. Let's have a listen at this WhatsApp voice note.
Good morning, Mr. Oliver and your producer and all the listeners of SAFM. Mr. Oliver, I'd like to talk to regard to the Minister of Finance. Why they don't tax those ministers and the president? Because he's the one who earning a lot of money here in South Africa and is enjoying life. They must supposed to tax them seriously. So that must fix all the things that we short here in South Africa. Those ministers is earning a lot of money, and some of them, they steal their taxes money at the same time. Thank you, Sia from Cape Town.
About 45% of what ministers earn already goes towards tax. Maybe a little bit more than 45%, if you consider all things related to it. That's the highest tax bracket available in law. I'm not sure that they could be taxed higher than that. But thanks for that. Appreciate it. We're going to continue with the show on the other side of this. Like I said, we're talking Budget 3.0, and we're going to be joined by the Institute for Economic Justice, Zimbali Ngube, who's the tax and budget policy researcher. From there will join us, as well as Professor Andre Roux, who's an economist at Stellenbosch Business School. All of that and more on the other side of this. It's a minute after 10. Let's take your latest news bulletin with Ann Musa.
In our top stories, Parliament to release detailed costs of budget speeches and Gauteng legislature to subpoena the Mfuleni municipality. Good morning. National Assembly Speaker Toko Didiza says Parliament will comply with the request and share in writing the full cost related to the tabling of the 2 budget speeches by Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana. This after the EFF asked for a cost analysis of the money spent on the 2 previous budget speeches. During the National Assembly Programming Committee meeting yesterday, Parliament said the costs it bore were for the facilities it needed for the sittings. The venue is the responsibility of the Department of Public Works. The EFF also wants this department to provide a cost analysis. ANC Chief Whip Mdumiseni Ntuli disagrees with this and says some of the facts around what happened during the previous budget processes are being manipulated.
Facts are being manipulated or distorted in a sense that I cannot understand why would members of this committee say that there has to be somebody taking a personal responsibility, especially for the sitting of the 12. The one that could not take place in February, I understand that concern, and I fully agree with your response, Speaker, that a written information will be made available to parties, including engaging with the public works to submit their own information as well. But I am concerned that the argument relating to the 12, in my own view, does not hold because we had a sitting on that day.
3 people have been killed and 2 others injured in a mass shooting at a village outside Ingcobo in the Eastern Cape. According to reports, the deceased were preparing for a funeral for this coming weekend when unknown heavily armed gunmen opened fire last night. Mayor of Dr. A.B. Nxuma Municipality, Siyabulela Zinqa, has expressed shock at the incident and has appealed to police to leave no stone unturned in their investigation.
I want to express my heartfelt condolences to the families that has lost their loved ones and wish speedy recovery for those that are admitted at All Saints Hospital. I'm appealing to the members of the community to remain calm and appeal to the South African Police Service to make sure that they do everything in their power to apprehend these criminals and brought them to book.
The Standing Committee on Petitions in the Gauteng Legislature will subpoena the Emfuleni local municipality to come and account as to why it failed to respond to service delivery-related petitions. Out of 8 petitions submitted by residents, only 1 received a formal response. The unresolved petitions relate to service delivery failures in Sebokeng, the Everton Township mega project, and disputes around municipal rates bills. Petitions Committee Chairperson Vihiswa Gentile says one of these petitions dates as far back as 2013 and remains unresolved.
This inaction of Emfuleni is not only stalling the resolutions of valid community grievances, that is also undermining the integrity of petition system itself. As public representatives, we have a duty really to act firmly and decisively, because the resolve of our people to barricade the streets during protests should not be the language that is understood by service delivery points before remedial action.
Intercape long-distance bus service has, through its legal representative, called on Parliament to intervene in the continued attacks on its buses. The long-haul bus company's legal representative, Advocate Kate Hofmeyer, appeared before the Police Portfolio Committee in Parliament yesterday to discuss the matter. Hofmeyer told MPs that with more than 200 cases, including the murder of a bus driver, opened by Intercape, the South African Police Service has done nothing to solve the cases. She called on Parliament to intervene.
The judicial system has stepped up. It has held the police to account. It has told them in chapter and verse what they need to do, but nothing is being done. And so we say to you today, it is now time for Parliament to play its role in our constitutional democracy by shining the light of public accountability on those who must account for this inaction.
Meanwhile, police have told MPs they are implementing a safety plan for long-haul bus operators as directed by the Eastern Cape High Court in Makanda. They say 11 people have been arrested out of 76 cases they're investigating. The plan includes escorting buses on some of the routes, but the Deputy Police Minister Poli Bushilu says this is a difficult task to do due to limited resources.
On some of the demand that we can escort buses, it will put too much strain on us, but at a strategic point, like they have said, we're able to do that, because then the taxis will want to be also escorted. The other bus companies also want to be escorted.
Recapping the top story, National Assembly Speaker Toko Didiza says Parliament will comply with the request and share in writing the full cost related to the tabling of the 2 budget speeches by Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point. This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and stories that shape the continent. Join us as we celebrate African pride, unity, and progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
You are listening to Oliver Dixon on SAFM. The Talking Point on SAFM. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
It is 9 minutes after 10 o'clock. Good morning, and this is The Talking Point. My name is Oliver Dixon. Still an absolute honor and privilege to be in your company. In this hour, we talk Budget 3.0. The Minister of Finance has to table the budget next week, Wednesday. And in it, the Minister of Finance needs to provide a revised expenditure program and, of course, a revised revenue program. Both of these things are incredibly difficult to balance. On the day that the minister withdrew prior to the court order on it, but on the day that the minister withdrew the fiscal expenditure program, the fiscal framework rather, the minister said this now leaves a 75 billion rand deficit in the medium term in the budget that will need to be found somewhere else. And that means he has a lot of things have to be moved around. Ostensibly, it means we either have to borrow more, spend less, or a combination of the two, if not perhaps looking at other tax and levy instruments to raise additional revenue other than VAT, given that we're here because VAT was rejected vehemently. Joining me in this conversation in this hour is Zimbali Mncube, who's the tax and budget policy researcher at the Institute for Economic Justice.
Good morning, everyone.
Prof. Ru, good morning.
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners.
Zimbali, the minister says there's a 75 billion rand gap in the medium term in the budget. The IEJ says in its report, no, that's a lie. It's only 2.7 billion. Tell me how you guys came to that number.
Thanks, Oliver. I think for us, we've raised the point that the minister is deliberately exaggerating the extent of the shortfall, particularly because when you look at this year alone, the VAT was estimated to bring about 13.5 billion. When you take into account that SARS has over-collected by about 8.8 billion. This means the gap is lower to around 11.5 billion, right? And then to 2.7 rather, not 11.5. And then when you take into account that the zero rating, which was estimated to be about 2 billion, is also lowered. It means that the gap this year for 2025-26 is 2.7 billion. And then over the medium term, it's 60 billion rather than 75 billion. And we're saying that this is still around 1% of total government spending, and it's quite a small shortfall that can be covered by alternative ways to raise revenue.
Yeah. Prof. Ru, is there an understanding really on by National Treasury around what the expenditure program should look like in relation to the priorities of government and cabinet in a way that can manage the shortfall, or is it an unavoidable shortfall?
Yeah, look, I think to make a general observation, I think it's rather unfortunate and sad that the whole budget has been eclipsed by the mathematics, by the arithmetic.
Yeah.
And in the event, I hope it's going to be third time lucky, in the event the really important issues such as the desperate need for growth, but the right kind of growth that creates jobs, the ongoing unemployment crisis, the well-known poverty, inequality, seem to be sort of taking a step back. So as I say, it's become a matter of arithmetic. We've spent weeks and weeks, in fact even months, essentially quibbling about a 0.5 percentage point increase in the VAT rate. So as I say, I think, we can play around with numbers, we can try to balance the books, as it were. There is a gap to be plugged, but ultimately I'm concerned that we're losing sight of a much bigger picture, a much more important picture.
But more importantly, is the options that are available to government at its disposal. Has it exercised relative creativity in how it could move money around and use different instruments, fiscal instruments rather, coupled perhaps with the monetary environment we found ourselves in, to be able to best manage the shortfall, Prof?
Yeah, look, the wiggle room is so limited. I mean, we've got to look at the bigger picture, the parameters within which this budget speech or this budget needs to be completed. Let's start off with the obvious one of economic growth. And when we talk about our economic growth, we have to think about global economic growth. A very recent report of predictions forecast by the IMF indicate that worldwide expected growth rates now are substantially lower than a mere 3 or 4 months ago. We know about the turbulence prevailing all over the world. The same applies here. I'm very concerned about the fact that assumptions the minister has to make about economic growth might be over-ambitious, over-optimistic. And if the growth rate, which is in any case extremely low, turns out to be even lower, then the overall tax base shrinks or doesn't get much bigger. So that provides a constraint on tax revenue. If we think about another way of raising tax revenue would be to raise tax rates, different kinds of tax rates. But we've seen for the last few weeks that that's become a highly delicate and
many South Africans have been subjected to bracket creep.
Well, I mean, he's not adjusting for bracket creep, in fact. In fact, that's kind of a stealth bracket creep, sorry. It's kind of a stealth tax in the sense that the additional revenue budgeted from not adjusting for bracket creep is actually higher than the initial increase anticipated from the increase in the VAT rate. So, it's a no-win situation. When tax rates increase, you're not going to grow the economy. So if we assume that's not possible, you have to start thinking
Wait. Prof, why is that? Other than maybe a technical reference to the Laffer curve, explain to us in layman's term why an increase in the tax rate, whether it be personal income tax or company tax, wouldn't result in more revenue growth, which could be used for more capital expenditure on growth-oriented things in the economy so that we can have the economic growth that we desire.
Yeah, look, I mean, it will create some increase in revenue growth, but probably not as substantial as one would hope. We know from experience that when the personal income tax rates increase, taxpayers change their behavior to try to avoid that tax. In fact, as things stand at the moment, this country's personal income tax rate is amongst the highest, not the highest in the world, especially for developing economies or low and upper middle income economies. Our maximum tax rate is around about 55%. Or if we have a look at things such as the corporate income tax rate, there too, we have a rather high rate, and it's already deterring investment and making South Africa even less attractive as an investment destination. So there's always a risk that by raising those kind of tax rates, you actually defeat the object, that you actually do more harm than good, and deter an already sluggish rate of economic activity.
Okay, but if at a minimum level, we took corporate income tax back to 28%, which is where it was 3 years ago, would that deter business sentiment worse than what it was 3 years ago?
It probably would, taken in conjunction with so many other factors that are deterring investment. It's not just the tax rate deterring it, but by itself, possibly not. In conjunction with the other well-known barriers and concerns, some of which might be over-exaggerated, but nonetheless, perceptions are perceptions. So taking into account our labor situation, taking into account the level of the low level of or the poor quality of infrastructure, our rather burdensome regulations, add to that an increase in corporate income tax that will already deter an already disappointing investment effort in the country.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah, give us a call, 086 000 2032, 086 000 2032. You can also send us your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. We're going to take a short break. On the other side of this, we continue the conversation.
Marawai, why did you think a plastic bag and tape was a solid window replacement after that smash and grab? And why does it sound like a kite every time you hit Puma 60Ks? Marawai, why aren't you insured with Santam, the insurer that covers theft or attempted hijacking? Get your car covered online in just 2 minutes or SMS cover to 36101. Santam. This is freedom. T's and C's apply. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
TSG believe if they double their efforts, they will close the curtain with huge smiles. But the Reds are on standby to cheers to an incredible season. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Witness TSG Hoffenheim against Bayern München on Saturday, 17 May at 3 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC 3, and on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
What does extraordinary mean to you?
Is it being voted South Africa's most trusted enterprise telco 2 years in a row?
Vodacom Business helps more than 133,000 businesses with AI, cloud, enterprise apps, IoT, and security. One seamless ecosystem. Together, let's build the extraordinary that sustains today and protects tomorrow. Start your journey at vodacombusiness.co.za. Further together, Vodacom Business.
Save and win a car with Spar, for real. Stand to win one of 50 fiery red Hyundai Grand i10 sedans. Buy any participating products and swipe your rewards card to enter. Get 8 kg Spar Wolf dog food for $159.99 plus 400 megs free data on Spar Mobile, or 700 grams Spar pre-packed cheese for $89.99 plus 200 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Price is valid until 19 May while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
20 minutes after 10 o'clock, we're talking Budget 3.0. Next week, Wednesday, the Minister of Finance will have to table a third iteration of the 2025-2026 budget. And there are questions around how it's all going to balance. Before we went to the break, Zimbali, Prof. Roo was making the argument that increasing tax is regressive, particularly if you look at corporate income tax. I asked if it were to go back to 28%, would it result in erosion of business confidence and a flight of investment capital? And Prof. Roo said, yeah, that is the effect of increasing taxes. The IEJ doesn't believe that's the case. The IEJ believes taking it back to 28%, which frees up, which brings in an immediate 12 billion, assuming that you're not going to have tax avoidance practices come into play by sneaky corporates. But assuming that is the case, why are you confident that's the right fiscal revenue generation alternative, given that there's a fear that it might result in capital flight?
I think just to go back to my earlier point, it's important to push back against the narrative that there is a fiscal crisis, because most of the policy proposals National Treasury has put forward have been underlined by this fear, whether it's created in the media or whether it's a pushback against the revenue proposals, such as the one you're asking about. And this goes against the growing political consensus amongst political parties, labor, and civil society that we can no longer accept austerity because of its counterintuitive impact on growth and on public services, right? And hence we are left without an option but to cut expenditure. At least that's what the National Treasury wants us to believe. But we're saying there are other options, including like the question you're raising, which is restoring the corporate income tax. And our response to that has been to say that those who believe in that must show, using evidence, how a 1 percentage point increase will affect investment versus the revenue that we will collect potentially, because the tax rate was reduced. However, there hasn't been any evidence presented as to what investment did this reduction generate, and how has it helped the state, resource its priorities, right? And so we question whether the pushback against increasing such a rate can be weighed upon versus the benefits that government will gain, especially in the context where we are looking for revenue and we have to, resource our priorities. So, those are some of the arguments that we've put forward. And ultimately, we should see that government puts in place the necessary measures, such as capital controls, to ensure that there isn't capital flight. So it's simply not enough to say that increasing a particular tax will result in depressed investments without putting the necessary mechanisms in place or even showing through the use of evidence the results that it will generate. Yeah.
One of the other alternatives that you guys at IEJ are recommending is for government to dig into JAFECRA for the second time in the medium term, in the retrospective medium term. They did so 2 years ago. And just to give a sense to our listeners what JAFECRA is, basically it's a savings account that the government owns, and it's banked by the Reserve Bank. Effectively, when there's movement in the dollar and there are profits that are realized in the movement in the dollar or gold reserves, that's held in that account, and the Reserve Bank manages it on behalf of the Reserve Bank. Effectively, the Reserve Bank manages it on behalf of government. We were told, and this is publicly available information, that there's 300 billion rand available in the account. We took some money out of it a few years ago, like I said. And Zimbali, you think that we could safely take 50 to 100 billion out of that account and use it? Why is that?
We've raised it before, like you say, in the previous budgets, and it was also met with resistance until government conceded that actually there can be a safe buffer. And subsequently, the legislation around this was changed to say that there should be a buffer of about 250 billion. Now, we raised these proposals to say that we can still dip into this pool. Of course, it's not a sustainable measure, but in light of the situation that the country finds itself in, it can be still drawn upon without risking currency fluctuations. And so it's something that can be ring-fenced and put towards specific social or economic expenditure that can then generate some of the positive outcomes we are looking for.
Yeah. Is it advisable, Prof. Roux, to dig into our reserves, particularly the JAFECRA reserves?
Yes, in principle, I would say so. In fact, earlier this week, I did make the point in another forum. One's got to be careful, of course. The way it works, as you pointed out, is that the Reserve Bank sort of manages this on behalf of Treasury, the Special Contingency Fund, so that if we earn, for argument's sake, $100 a few years ago at a certain rand value, and then the rand weakens, then technically the value of the $100 is increased. And that profit, as it were, is what Treasury is entitled to use. There's nothing unusual about that. Just by the way, if the rand strengthens, then actually you go into reverse. Treasury actually owes the Reserve Bank something.
Yeah.
But I think
so effectively, this account hedges against the rand. Effectively.
Well, kind of, yes. It's more than just that, but certainly it's there. I think, as quite rightly pointed out, it can't be used indefinitely. I mean, we'll soon run out of those funds. But in these desperate situations, maybe it is worthwhile contemplating. I should quickly say something about the corporate income tax for May. We need to bear in mind that essentially corporates don't pay the tax. They will try to pass that on to consumers and to their workers, etc., or at least part of it. So that does also have a punishing effect on consumers, by the way.
Yeah.
But yes, the contingency reserve, I think in these desperate situations, use it prudently, wisely, to either help redeem some of our debt or to earmark it for.
300 billion endowment, how much would you be comfortable? What margin would you be comfortable in withdrawing from? I know you're an economist and you're not a bond trader, and I'm sure those looking at the bond yield curve and all of those sorts of metrics would have a better answer. But what's a safe margin?
I would say, in the circumstances, given the volatility of the exchange rate, etc., somewhere between 50 and 100.
Okay. And that is also what the IEJ recommends. Just maybe also lastly, before we go to the break, Zimbali, one of the other immediate measures that IEJ recommends is the removal of the medical tax break that's given to high-income earners. Talk to us about that. You guys say it could raise 60 billion rand immediately.
Yes, we're saying some of these tax breaks and rebates accrue to, the highest income earners in our country. And these are people that wouldn't necessarily need these incentives, or even if they were removed, they wouldn't necessarily be put in a worse off position than they currently are. And so we're saying that they should be limited, particularly for retirement fund contributions. And this can help immediately unlock about 60 billion for the government. And so I think the main point here is to say that there are incentives that the government is giving towards the wealthy, and it's time that the responsibility to help the country go is not shouldered by the most vulnerable in society, which is what we have seen through budget cuts that are often extended to public services. But rather, we should actually look at how the budget can also look at different groups in the country and how we can use those funds to help us create inclusive growth.
Yeah, we'll talk more in detail about that on the other side of this. I'd love to hear your ideas, your thoughts, and your reactions to this, perhaps your own questions on 086 000 2032. Give me a call, 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. 0614 104 107. It's 10:30. Let's take your latest news headlines with Anne Musa.
Thank you, Oliver. The news headlines on SAFM. I am Ondalambala, and a very good morning. The Supreme Court of Appeal has dismissed Dr. Nandipha Magudumana's bid to have her arrest declared unlawful. Magudumana approached the SCA to reverse the decision of the Free State High Court, which dismissed her application to nullify her arrest on the basis that she had consented to be brought back to the country. National Assembly Speaker Thoko Didiza says Parliament will comply with the request and share in writing the full cost related to the tabling of the two budget speeches by Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana. And Australia's most decorated living war veteran has lost his appeal against a landmark defamation judgment which found he committed war crimes in Afghanistan. The full update follows at the top of the hour.
That was Ondela, not Anne Musa. My apologies for that. But let's take a look at the markets. The rand is trading at 18 rand 8 cents to the dollar, 24 rand 6 cents to the pound, and 20 rand 26 cents to the euro. Markets in Asia were mostly negative at the closing bell. The JSE is mainly weaker during the mid-morning trade, while markets in Europe have extended losses. Gold is trading at $3,203 and platinum at $986 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $64.65 a barrel.
You are listening to Oliver Dixon on SAFM.
And we're talking Budget 3.0, the ideas raised by the IEJ. We've discussed some of them. A drawdown from Jafekra, they say 50 to 100 billion. Prof. Andre Roux, who's an economist at Stellenbosch Business School, agrees that that's a safe measure to draw down from. IEJ says, the Institute for Economic Justice says, let's restore corporate income tax back to 28% where it was 2-3 years ago. That will give us an additional 12 billion rand. Prof. Roux says that might not be the best idea because raising taxes often have the reverse impact from what we think it could have. And the Institute for Economic Justice, Zimbali Ngube, says, well, let's also remove the medical tax breaks for high-income earners, which would raise an additional 60 billion rand for National Treasury in this fiscal year immediately. What are your thoughts on that? 086-000-2032. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how the minister could balance the books, as it were, for Budget 3.0. 086-000-2032. Let's have a listen at some of your WhatsApp voice notes that came through on our WhatsApp line.
Oliver, kahle lana, according to my understanding, this VAT thing, according to the law, it was not supposed to apply on items, on commodities that we as human beings need in order to survive. It was only supposed to apply to items that we do not really need for survival as human beings. I mean, that's how I understand all this thing about VAT. I mean, it's not a matter of trying to capitalize most on the human weakness, on the vulnerability. No. This is just business. So it's a matter of focusing more on the wants, things that we can choose. You understand? Things that we can choose as human beings.
I think it's a dishonest discussion not to talk about, to be focused on money that government needs to raise apparently to fund its priorities without talking about the wastage, without talking about the massive cabinet that we have, the massive number of deputy ministers. There's a lot of duplication, there's a lot of wastage in SETAs and other government institutions. We have to cut fat. We can't just be focused about how much money governments must raise in order to fund its priorities without talking about the wastage.
Prof. Roux, if you were to reduce cabinet to half the size it currently is, you might be able to save 1 billion rand, 1.5 billion rand at the highest, maybe 500 million rand if you're being conservative. And that's really just because of the administrative costs of having a cabinet, right? Is that a measure that you think, despite its political sensitivity, is one that government should seriously consider to signal seriousness in cutting or trimming the fat, as it were, as the caller just raised there on the WhatsApp voice note?
Yeah, we use the word signal. It would give across the right signal. It won't make much of a difference. I mean, as you mentioned, we talk about a couple of billion. And I say it sounds very flippant saying a couple of billion. In the grander scheme of things, it won't resolve some of these underlying structural problems. But I do agree with the WhatsApp, or the person who just gave a WhatsApp message, that we do need to look not just at the revenue side, but at the spending side. Now, admittedly, there are some areas of spending, the big ticket numbers, which are non-negotiable. I mean, I would hate to see less spending on education. I would hate to see less spending on health. It would be difficult to justify spending less on the civil servant salary bill. Promises have been made. I would not like to see personally any cutback in social grants. I think they are desperately needed. But within all of those and many other areas, there can be no doubt that there's lots of unfruitful spending and unwarranted spending and wastage. And I think that's where some slashing of government spending can take place.
Yeah.
In addition, something else we haven't mentioned, back to the tax revenue, we know that the SARS commissioner said repeatedly there is billions and billions and billions of uncollected tax revenue slipping through the net. So by enhancing their efficiency, and we know from experience they can be very efficient, one could perhaps also solve a big part of the problem, and not just as an emergency measure, but as a sustained measure.
Yeah. I want to bring you back in here, Zimbali. On expenditure. Reviewing our expenditure program is necessary and it's important, and perhaps cutting in certain instances. But where do you think is the balance in cutting expenditure without necessarily subjecting the country to an austerity budget?
Yeah, I mean, we also would support a program that is transparent and very targeted, like Prof said, in terms of reviewing the programs that are not generating the outcomes that they are meant to, or they are simply being taken advantage of in terms of corruption and lack of, management. But like I said, we should be moving towards a budget that is informed by progressively realizing socioeconomic rights as opposed to regressing. And if we use that lens, then it's quite clear that we can't, for instance, as the National Treasury has suggested, we can't be capping social grants, for instance, in the context of high unemployment and where they've supported livelihoods. But we need to look elsewhere. There are other programs such as the employment tax incentives that we can look at as to does it have, the impacts that it's resulting on in light of, youth unemployment. What are the bottlenecks there? Could take that money and use it for something else? And so I think those would be the approach that would use in looking at the expenditure side, as opposed to simply going and cutting, programs that are delivering and protecting those that are vulnerable.
Yeah. Give us a call, 086 000 2032. Let's go to the lines. Joe in KZN. Joe, go for it. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Oliver, and good morning to your guests and the listeners. Firstly, I do agree with most of the proposals by the IEJ, but, there are two key areas, I think, as far as the expenditure side is concerned, that could be reduced drastically. First thing is debt service costs. The interest rates, the current environment is far too high. So coming to government debt, it's around 6 trillion rand. And for every decrease of 1% in the interest rate, a saving of at least 60 billion rand can be achieved. Also, the irregular, fruitless, wasteful, and unnecessary expenditure, the auditing approach to that needs to change. We need to get to a preventative, program instead of a detective one that's being done by the Auditor General's office. And that is running into a couple $100 billion of wasteful expenditure. Just coming back to the interest rate environment, I will give, for example, comparison with the European Union, which is South Africa's one of their largest trading partners. A couple of years ago, their inflation rate was over 10%, and currently they brought it down to 2.7%, which is, roughly equal to what South Africa's current inflation rate is. But, their base lending rate is equivalent to our repo rate. That only peaked at about 4%, and that's come down to 2.25%. So there's a complete, disparity there. And I think the SAR is a bit captured or dictated to by the IMF, the World Bank, the WEF, OECD. It's supposed to be so-called independent, but you can see with all the foreign currency manipulation by the 28 local and international banks that, South Africans are being ripped off, and all that's happening under SAR's watch. And I think that needs to be curtailed.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting thoughts you have there, Joe. We'll ask our panel to respond to them on the other side of this. Give us a call, 086 000 2032. I'm in conversation with Zimbali Ncube as well as Professor Andre Roux. Let's take a short break. On the other side of this, we continue.
The Blue Diamonds are craving for 3 points, but Amatax believe in their football intelligence to triumph. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. It's more than just 90 minutes. Catch the joy of Mfanti's women's football. JBW Ladies FC versus the University of Pretoria Ladies FC. The Saturday 17 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Hi, my name is Kutlwana Masote, your host of Weekend Sundowner Classics every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. exclusively on SAFM. Now, this is where you get your best classical music jams on any radio platform. Join me every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between 4 and 7 p.m. Weekend Sundowner Classics.
This is Oliver Dixon on SAFM.
18 minutes to the top of the hour. We're talking Budget 3.0. I'm taking your call 086 000 2032. Before I go back to the lines, perhaps to just ask my panelists to respond to the call that we had from Joe. Prof. Roo?
Yes, one of the points he made was about the debt servicing costs. And
Yeah.
You're quite right, they are horrifically high. I've done some silly calculations which indicate that the amount of interest we're paying on government debt is more than double the monetary value of the economy of Namibia, for instance.
Wow.
These are very high numbers, and obviously it's a result of massive increases in the amount of government debt incurred over the last 10 or so years, which brings us back to the imperative this time round of not overextending ourselves again. We don't want that budget deficit to rise too rapidly, because that just passes the burden on to future generations. In many ways, if we borrow money, when I say we, I mean government, is placing the burden on future generations, kind of mortgaging our children and our grandchildren's lives. So I quite agree. However, having said that, I must also point out that the interest that we pay on the government debt is a function of trying to attract people to buy that debt, to buy the government bonds. Given the risk, rightly or wrongly, the risk profile of the country,
Yeah.
we need to be able to offer fairly good returns to attract people and entice them to buy our government bonds. So it's not really the Reserve Bank controlling that. By the way, talking about the Reserve Bank, just to add to
So
our
who
conversation-
determines what the bond yield value on our debt is?
Well, essentially, if I say the markets, it sounds like a cop-out, but you've got to offer a return which is commensurate with the willingness or lack thereof of funders to buy these bonds. So the higher the risk perceived, the higher the rate of return you have to offer. It has to serve as an enticement.
And so basically it's a number of variables that determine that, and it's not like the Minister of Finance or the Reserve Bank governor sucks their thumb and says, actually, 5% I think is high
Correct.
enough, let's stick to 5%.
Correct. You've got to take into account the perception markets have. Just to add something else, by the way, we all know that the bulk of government debt is owed domestically to domestic lenders, including pension funds, including provident funds, including insurance houses.
Well, that's a good thing, right? It means we're paying our debt back in rand terms and not in foreign
Yeah.
currency terms.
It kind of stays in the family, yes.
Yeah. Zimbali, do you have a thought on the call we had from Joe there?
Yeah, no, I think I also agree with Joe. There's been a narrow fixation on the debt to GDP ratio. But like he says, the real concern is the interest rates we're paying on our government bonds, which are also influenced by credit rating agencies and, like Prof said, the long-term bond market. But I think the question here is that the Reserve Bank should be playing a role, and it can intervene in terms of purchasing our government bonds and ensuring that there is lending, particularly to sectors that are in, manufacturing and construction, to actually help us drive structural transformation. And I think the Reserve Bank has scope to intervene in that instance to ensure that the borrowing is affordable. But we've also raised some proposals, including capital allocation tools, such as, regulated lending, to ensure that the borrowing is affordable, particularly for businesses in the sectors that I've mentioned. And then Prof touched on, a bit on pension funds some of our partners at AIDC have raised the point around using the government employees pension fund managed by PIC to actually make large pools of capital available, or to use prescribed assets whereby the PIC would not just be, investing in the private sector, but would help the country in terms of rescuing Eskom, of course, with conditionalities being put in terms of taking on its debt. And I think those are some of the intervention that can help us use.
Isn't the difficulty faced there? Isn't the difficulty being faced there that the PIC has a primary fiduciary duty to the government employee pension fund, which has a statutory duty to its contributors, that is to say people who pay their pension funds, to be able to actualize returns. You are not guaranteed of returns if you put your money into Eskom. It's not a guaranteed return, right? It's volatile and it's somewhat of a gamble. Whereas if I can put my money in the capital markets at an average of 7 to 10% returns per annum, that's guaranteed. I know the money is going to retain its value. I know it's going to grow. It's not a gamble whether or not Eskom will be able to turn itself around.
Yeah, I think that's true. And
sorry, Zimbali, go for it.
I was going to say, sorry. Yeah. I was going to say, if you look at history, investing in this country's government bonds has always been a very safe investment. I don't think we've ever defaulted. Never before has the interest not been paid. It's actually, despite all perceptions and news reports, it's a very safe investment and not a bad one either. Returns are not spectacular, but they're not bad either. They're better than most countries. Just a few years ago, the interest rate on government bonds in Europe was -1%, -2%. Ours are very handsome compared to that. So, government bonds are a fairly safe investment as long as the current rate of government debt doesn't escalate to unmanageable figures. Yeah. We've never defaulted. We've got a very good reputation in that regard.
Yeah. Zimbali?
Yeah, no, I was just saying, I touched on it a bit, but to say the conditions should be, in terms of lending to entities like Eskom, part of it should become with like restructuring in order to ensure that the returns are then generated in the long term, whether this includes, governance issues or, some of the other issues that Eskom has been faced with. Is important to also consider that. But the broader question is for the country to shift in terms of its investment policies, not just to focus on corporate shares, but to now start to move into government
developmental spending.
Yeah, which would shield us from austerity measures, and it's one of the alternatives we should be looking at.
Yeah. Give us a call, 086 000 2032. And I take a short break. Spamandla, Kabecha, and Colin in Cape Town. I'll take your calls next.
No matter our abilities, we can all play together.
It's always time to play on Takalani Sesame.
Wow! I love this game! Learning new things is the best part about having a friend who knows something you don't know.
Oh, yay!
We are all special in our own way.
Tune in to see what makes you special for the all-new episodes of Takalani Sesame. Weekdays at 3 p.m. on SABC2. Reigning champions Bafana Style are in a jubilant mood closer to the end of the season. They are enjoying every moment on the summit, but Magesi FC have an agenda to cause an upset. This is the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns FC versus Magesi FC on Sunday 18 May, streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC 1 at 4:30 p.m. Also available on SABC radio stations at 5:30 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hi, Hi, I'm Khomotso KG Mweketi, and I believe in music's ability to connect, to heal, to remind, and to bring joy. And each week on my Saturday and Sunday show Seasons right here on SAFM, I endeavor to do just that. So join the movement of Seasons every Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's addictive. You might invite a friend. Seasons, only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, with me, KG Mweketi.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Yeah, it's 8 minutes to the top of the hour. Let's take some of your call reactions to those conversations. Pamandla in Gqeberha. Pamandla, good morning.
Yeah, good morning again, Mr. Dixon.
Hi, Pamandla, go for it.
Again. I would like to comment on the conversation just had with Professor Roo. He's a really esteemed professor. My brother is at Stellenbosch University right now. He speaks very well about his work. I admire your work, Professor Roo. But what I'd like to ask the professor is, in terms of like raising an economy, you use like the available resources that you have to create outputs which can increase like income for the economy. I mean, the resource that we have available is land resource. If you could use that resource to provide organic farming techniques for the community, build farm, grow food, sell that food across the continent, I'm pretty sure we could make a couple billions. I mean, everybody buys food occasionally. I mean, look how the organic farms are just popping up all over the townships. Now imagine if we solidified how it works, so into a proper Coca-Cola type situation where food is being grown almost 3 to 4 times a week.
Okay.
It's like how the biggest is a farm. It shows how food grows so quickly with organic farming techniques. The more food is grown, the more food is exported, because there are so many unemployed people in this country that could grow food so easily. Even young children can grow food in schools. Use that as a way to boost our economy.
Yeah. Pamandla, thanks for your call. Appreciate it. Colin in Cape Town. Colin, good morning.
Good morning to your guests, and good morning to you, Oliver. Oliver, you know, the previous government, me growing up, food prices were controlled. Certain items were controlled. Milk, bread, mealie meal, and so and so and so and so. Now, the government is actually talking about bringing more items without VAT. But that is a waste of time. Because I went to the shop the other day to buy a loaf of bread. I only eat brown bread. All the years, only brown bread. I was charged 3 rand more. I said, hey, but what's going on? No, the price of bread went up. Now it's no VAT on it. Now what they are doing, the shops, they are, the no VAT items, they increasing. You see? Now the government must wake up and go into this business. Control those prices, because you could buy a loaf of bread, a litre of milk years ago in the previous government, no matter what shop you went to. It was the same price. Nobody could charge you more because government controlled it and subsidized those items. So it's a waste of time exempting food items from that when shops are pushing the prices of those items up. Thank you, Oliver. I'll listen on the radio.
Thank you so much. Both those things, I think, speak to cost of living expenses that perhaps the budget doesn't necessarily look into. Are there ways in which you think that we can use our fiscal instruments, Zimbali, to respond to the cost of living?
Yeah, no, thanks to the callers. I think there are valid concerns that have been raised, and I think our colleagues have done a bit of work in how, for instance, the government needs to intervene in prices, particularly in the use of food buffers, which can, play a role in ensuring that we regulate the prices in specific sectors where there is concentration in the market. But also, I think the delivery of social grants plays an important role in supporting people's livelihoods. And what we've seen is that the SRD and the child social grants have been below the food poverty line. And so it's very important for government to use objective measures such as the National poverty lines in benchmarking what sort of value should be the grants that they provide to individuals. And I think that's one of the ways in which we can ensure that people, when they go into shops, they don't get the shock that they can't actually sustain themselves or provide a nutritional diet for themselves.
Yeah. Prof. Roo, are we using fiscal instruments sufficiently in our budgets to respond to cost of living concerns?
I don't think fiscal policy is responsible for the cost of living, not directly. Price controls, and one of your listeners just spoke about that. I just want to remind them that, yes, the so-called previous government did have price controls, but the very same government abolished them because price controls never work. They might provide some immediate apparent relief, but it's a facade. It doesn't work in the long run. If nothing else, if you control agricultural prices, producers will be reluctant to produce. So you're going to end up with shortages. In terms of the social grants, I agree that it helps the current system. You probably know, we all know, that we have probably in excess of 20 million people receiving a social grant, and understandably so, and justifiably so. And I would agree it's nowhere near sufficient. The problem is, of course, we started this conversation to raise that. Where will the money come from to afford that? But other than that, I don't think fiscal policy as such can exert much control over what happens to prices. Just to add to the dilemma, if I may quickly say something about cash-strapped consumers.
Yeah.
We see from recent reports that the Reserve Bank is getting very serious about lowering the inflation targets, presumably from the current 3 to 6 to perhaps 2 to 4%. If that is the case, I'm afraid I need to say that will imply that interest rates will remain higher for longer and won't be dropping all that rapidly, just as an added complication to the whole conversation.
Yeah. Well, that's where we're going to have to leave it. Thank you so much for your time, Prof. Andre Roo, who is an economist at Stellenbosch Business School, as well as Zimbali Ngube, who is the tax and budget policy researcher at the Institute for Economic Justice. Thank you so much for all your calls and your voice notes on that. Very fascinating and important conversation. Like I said, the Minister of Finance will next week on Wednesday table the new budget while the president is out of the country. Yeah, and hopefully this one finds political favor. Hopefully this one is in the best interest of citizens. And hopefully we don't find ourselves on the precipice of a budgetary constitutional crisis of sorts, where we have to rely on a 45% ongoing allocation of the previous year's budget to keep paying bills because we were unable to pass a budget. This budget is not just a test of fiscal prudence, it's also a test of democratic discipline and maturity. On the other side of this, oh my goodness, Jabulile Majola joins us in studio. We're going to be playing you some really, really beautiful music. And as we go into the weekend, wrapping up our Fridays. It's 11 o'clock. Let's take your latest news bulletin with Ondela Mbana.
Thank you, Oliver. Top stories at 11. Magudumana's deportation appeal dismissed, and Australian veteran loses his defamation appeal. For SAFM News, I am Ondela Mbana, and a very good morning. The Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein has dismissed Dr. Nandipha Magudumana's deportation appeal. This is yet another legal blow for Magudumana, whose previous Free State High Court bid also hit a brick wall when she argued to have her arrest and deportation from Tanzania in 2023 set aside. Magudumana is one of the accused in the escape case of convicted killer and serial rapist Thabo Bester prison. The SCA verdict paves the way to trial that is set for July. She and her co-accused, who includes Thabo Bester, her father, as well as former employees of the G4S Rand Mangawong Correctional Center. They will face 38 counts ranging from fraud, corruption, money laundering, assisting an inmate to escape, violation of a corpse, and defeating the ends of justice. National Assembly Speaker Thoko Didiza says Parliament will comply with the request and share in writing the full cost related to the tabling of the two budget speeches by Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana. This after the EFF asked for a cost analysis of the money spent on the two previous budget speeches. During the National Assembly Programming Committee meeting yesterday, Parliament said the cost is poor, wherefore the facilities it needed for the sittings, the venue, the Nieuwermester Dome, is the responsibility of the Department of Public Works. The EFF also wants this department to provide a cost analysis. ANC's Chief Whip Mdumiseni Nduli disagrees with this and says some of the facts around what happened during the previous budget processes are being manipulated.
Facts are being manipulated or distorted in a sense that I cannot understand why would members of this committee say that there has to be somebody taking a personal responsibility, especially for the sitting of the 12. The one that could not take place in February, I understand that concern, and I fully agree with your response, Speaker, that a written information will be made available to parties, including engaging with the public works to submit their own information as well. But I am concerned that the argument relating to the 12, in my own view, does not hold because we had a sitting on that day.
The South African Police Union in the Northern Cape has expressed concern about the alarming rise in criminal activities in the mining town of Postmasburg. The union says the killings are a sign of deeper social decay and lack of adequate preventative interventions. SAPU Provincial Secretary Sabata Chabedi has called on the SAPS management to intensify regular patrols, swift response units and have a proactive crime prevention strategy.
We want to call all stakeholders, including community policing, which is our CPFs, local government, schools, religious leader and community-based organization to unite in comprehensive approach addressing the crime and new violence in Postmasburg.
A search is underway for a 22-year-old man who went missing after being swept out to sea by rip currents while swimming in the surf at Shelly Beach on the KwaZulu-Natal south coast. NSRI spokesperson Craig Lambinon says it's understood that the missing man was doing maintenance work at the tidal pool when he decided to go for a swim. Other workers at the tidal pool, surfers and other bystanders tried to reach the man, but he disappeared under the water. Lambinon says extensive search and rescue efforts were launched.
A man was caught in rip currents while swimming at low tide, and he was being swept out to sea. There were efforts by bystanders who were trying to assist. NSRI Port Edward rescue swimmers and an NSRI Shelly Beach rescue swimmer responded, while NSRI crew responded to the NSRI Port Edward Station 32 rescue base, where the NSRI rescue vehicle towing the NSRI rescue craft Spirit of Surfski 7 was dispatched. The NSRI rescue craft was launched at Ramsgate Ski Boat Club, responding to the scene.
Australia's most decorated leaving war veteran has lost his appeal against a landmark defamation judgment which found he committed war crimes in Afghanistan. Ben Roberts-Smith claimed the trial judge made legal errors when he found the former Special Forces corporal was complicit in the murders of 4 prisoners between 2009 and 2012. 3 federal judges dismissed his appeal. The BBC's Phil Mercer reports.
Today's hearing at the federal court has unanimously thrown out Ben Roberts-Smith's appeal, but it's not over. We are hearing from his legal team, the former soldier's legal team, that there could well be a High Court challenge, saying that he vigorously denies what he describes as egregious and spiteful allegations against him.
Recapping the top story, the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein has dismissed Dr. Nandipha Magudumana's deportation appeal. This is yet another legal blow for Magudumana, whose previous Free State High Court bid also hit a brick wall when she argued to have her arrest and deportation from Tanzania in 2023 set aside. I'm Ondela Mbana for SFM News Headlines at 11:30.
#SAFM Talking Point.
We spend a lot of time looking for deals, but we don't invest the same time in our health. Your health buys you more time with the people you love. So who are you staying healthy for, and how can you improve your health? Choose Dis-Chem Life, the life cover that rewards you for living healthier with lower premiums and more cover. Visit dischemlife.co.za now. Dis-Chem Life. Choose a better partner for life. Dis-Chem Life is an authorized FSP 50594, underwritten by Guard Risk Life, a licensed life insurer, FSP 76. T's and C's apply.
The Blue Diamonds are craving for 3 points, but Amatax believe in their football intelligence to triumph. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. It's more than just 90 minutes. Catch the joy of Mfanti's women's football. JVW Ladies FC versus the University of Pretoria Ladies FC. The Saturday 17 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you. As we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity, we bring you rich conversations and stories that shape the continent. Join us as we celebrate African pride, unity, and progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Friday Wind Down. Kick off your weekend the right way.
Mufusha okwempande sekhowe kulego weso. I'm of faith is underneath. I'm of faith is underneath. Bambi sandla sami. I'm of faith is underneath. Bambi sandla sam. Isandla sam. Umuge nami mufu. Impasamo sam. Angizalwa nganas. Angiukhethanga lo mbuso. Lo mbuso. Abe umfusha. Isandla sam, isandla sam, umuke nami mufu. Impasamo sam, angizalwa nganas, angiukhethanga lo mbuso. Mufusha, 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 Mufusha. Mufusha.
12 minutes after 11 o'clock, that's the voice of folk artist Jabulile Majola, who now joins us in this hour as we, of course, bring in some of the best artists and music South Africa has on offer. Jabulile, good morning.
Good morning, holistic.
We'll get into some of that. For instance, I think some of those elements you speak of come through really, really well on Yoniam, where the cadencing, the writing, and sort of the texture of the song seems so intentional that you can almost pick it apart and say, "Well, here's why it is this way." But let's talk a little bit about part of the emotive storytelling that you do. You reference now your mom left you at a young age, and you grew up in a children's home. How has that influenced your worldview, and how does that translate into your music?
So, growing up, I grew up in a Christian home. Due to the fact that my mother had left without a trace, I don't know her. The only thing I know is her name. Hence, I call myself Jabulile Majola. It's from a place of. I was going through a really hectic process of healing and actually accepting myself and accepting my story at about the age of 21. That's when I found out that her name was Jabulile. And because I'd gone through that journey, I could sort of embrace her as well. Embrace her in a sense that, hey, I do hope that you found peace at some point in your life about maybe the things that you did, but also everybody is out here looking for hope. Everybody's out here looking for peace. And so I'm hoping that you got to find yours as well, though in the same way that I was finding my own. And so I think, sorry, can you repeat your question quickly? I lost my
and I think you're answering it really, really perfect, because that lived experience is it's unavoidable in how your music lands, sounds, and how it comes together. And I'm curious about whether you're always intentional on translating that healing, that wound into your music, and is that always the case for you?
Yes. So now it's now at a point where the purpose is what I live. It's not necessarily something that I'm trying to do. I don't find myself thinking about, okay, let me write something that is very emotional. Let me write something that is very healing or very vulnerable. It's just something that it's just something that I do. It's who I am. Because even when I'm talking to a person, I used to be very well guarded. I used to have my walls up with everybody, but now I've come to a point. I'm not saying I'm not aware. I'm not careful as to who I'm speaking to and how deep I'm letting people into my life. But there is not that bravado thing that I put up so that I protect myself from hurt, because I have overcome those situations that were so hard for me. I've overcome those situations that caused me to live in this prison, to live in a space where I don't fully articulate myself, where I don't fully express myself. Because when you get to fully live life, that's where the impact is. You know, my adoptive father last year, I was with him for the June holidays, and he said something that was so powerful. He said to me, you know, Jobs, like when he became a Christian, I'm also a Christian myself, but when he became a Christian, he says, from that moment in my life, I started giving 100%. Every single thing that I do 100%. I think when you come to that point of healing, and when you come to that point of accepting your flaws, accepting your goods and your bads, and you know that you're not perfect, you are allowed to actually live fully. And when you do that, it will come out everywhere. Whether I'm cooking, whether I'm with my wife, whether I'm playing, whether it's something that as a human being, artistry, creativity, the emotive feeling, the vulnerability within our music and all of those, is not something that only should be channeled through one thing that we do. We don't do life, we live life. We are who we are. You know what I'm saying? And so I've one of the things that I found myself always thinking about or philosophizing about, if you will, is that idea of doing and being. When you are being, you are not forcing anything. It's literally what you do. You know, that is the difference between that's a difference between somebody who does art and they are like an artist because that's their practice, and somebody who is an artist. Because somebody who is an artist, they don't have to wear any apron to actually start working. They are working everywhere. You know, even when they're sleeping, they're an artist. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah. The next song we're going to be playing is Wozamdana. Can you give us a sense of what the intention behind the story behind the song is and what you were conveying here?
Yeah. So again, this actually alludes to the question that you asked, where you were like, "Hey, do you try to be vulnerable? Are you aware that you're maybe talking about this or wanting to talk about that?" And so, how this song started actually is that I was at a mission trip once with my friend and his wife and his child as well, and I was looking at his child and I wrote a song from a father's perspective, speaking to their daughter. That's how the song started. Now, this song has obviously turned into a love song because around that time I met a woman, and then we became a couple and whatnot, and now we're married. And so I wrote a song in dedication to her, how I was feeling in that time. So it's this song that speaks about a love, a pure love that is pursuing you, you know. And we live in a world, and then after that, when you've written a song like that, then you start to really think about the world that we're living in. Because right now we're living in a world where people don't even believe they deserve to be loved. People don't even believe that they can get a love that is pure, a love that doesn't expect anything from them, a love that wants to take care of them. And so you will notice that because I'm already immersed in hope, I'm already immersed in wanting to speak the truth and do the real thing. It's stuff that just comes out of me without me even trying. So there's an intention about how I'm living my life and the way in which I want to do things, that it's just flowing out of me. It's not necessarily contrived or me trying to really make it sound like that.
Yeah. Well, let's have a listen at Wozamdana by Jabulile Majola.
Uphukile, khathi usemasi Wazamtana ngikunike uthando lwami. Wazamtana ngikunike ubambo lwami. Wazamtana ngikunike uthando lwami. Wazamtana ngikunike ubambo lwami. Let me give you my love. Come, let me give you my love. Come, let me give you my love. Come, let me give you my love. Let me give you my love. Come, let me give you my love. Come, Wazamtana ngikunike uthando lwami. Wazamtana ngikunike ubambo lwami. Wazamtana ngikunike uthando lwami. Wazamtana ngikunike ubambo lwami.
Wazamtana by Jabulile Majola playing there. Jabulile, as I was listening to that, I was starting to think about your sonic language. How did you develop that?
It developed over time and of exploring different sounds. And so when I was a child growing up, I used to be very fascinated with radio. I used to be very fascinated with music. I used to listen to all sorts of different genres. There was a time I was listening to pop. There was a time I was listening to a lot of gospel. There was a time I was listening to Afro folk and Afro soul. And so and the way in which I was raised by obviously both English people and Zulu people as well. Our house mothers were full-blown Zulu people. Some of them weren't speaking English at all, and some of them were even illiterate. But the way in which they told stories and the types of music that they listened to, at the time I wasn't into it, but it had a massive influence in the way in which I see maybe specifically Afro folk, for example, or the way in which I write. And then with my adoptive parents, the way in which they saw things, when my father would come back from mission trips, because he's an evangelist and he used to go into other parts of Africa sharing the gospel, they would come back and tell stories. And the type of music that he listened to, or songs that he would sing, it's something that created, like, I would say it created like somewhat a palette, but it wasn't like I know what I like, but like it sometimes things just come together and they blend and they become one thing. And so the way in which I see things, not only within the storytelling of the lyric, but even in the sound of the music, it has a lot to do with the surroundings. It has a lot to do with the information that I was taking in, both subconsciously and consciously.
Yeah, I want us to unpack that a little bit more on the other side of this. We're going to take a short break. Ondela Mbana has your latest news headlines at 11:30.
Thank you, Oliver. On the news headlines, National Prosecuting Authority has welcomed a judgment to dismiss Dr. Nandipama Gudumana's application to have her arrest in Tanzania declared unlawful. The SCA verdict paves the way for trial to begin, which is set for July. The Gauteng legislature is hosting the inaugural Boy-Child Sector Parliament in Albertine in Ekurhuleni. This is the World Max International Day of the Boy Child. And Motown legend Smokey Robinson is under criminal investigation in Los Angeles over accusations of sexual assault. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
The Friday Wind Down. Kick off your weekend the right way.
I'm in conversation today with Jabulile Machola, who's the Afro folk artist, stringing together beautiful sounds and heartfelt stories. Jabulile, are there artists you've worked with, either composers or collaborators, who over time has influenced your sonic profile?
Not that I know of yet. I have a tendency to also do other types of genres.
Right.
But I wouldn't say the people that I've worked with so far have sort of influenced that. I think it's people that I haven't yet worked with, people that I do listen to, because I do listen to like modern artists or artists that are sort of on our airwaves. I collaborated with Thando Zide because I was exposed to her music. I know her music. I know of people like Abom Saki and all of those things. So I do draw inspiration from I'd say that my contemporaries right now, but not necessarily from someone that I have worked with yet.
And who are some of your contemporaries whose music you listen to and you love and you say, that is a sound that I think I could work well with?
Yeah, as I've mentioned, I think Thando Zide definitely is one of them. And then there's another young man, I must just not get his name wrong, but his name is Ovuyonke. I discovered his sound on his stuff on TikTok. Very amazing. And he actually duetted one of the songs that I'm still working on called Mandla, and he killed it, And that's how I found out about him. And then I actually started looking at his work and whatnot. A guy from Pietermaritzburg, you can hear Pietermaritzburg in his music, And I think for me, like one thing about how I see music, provenance is very important. Tell me you're from a certain place without telling me you're from a certain place. You know what I'm saying? I can hear it in your sound. And then another thing that I did before I really started working on my EP, or before I even attempted to write in Zulu, I was listening to a lot of music from Mali, like Ali Farka. I listened to a lot of music from Madagascar, and one of the people that I was very into, his name is I'm gonna find his name now, but then there's another Ugandan artist that I listen to. He sings, interestingly enough, he sings in Lingala, and his name is Jeffrey Oriema. So there's just a couple of folk artists, a couple of world music artists that I was listening to, that when you hear the sound and then you start to realize, okay, maybe this is how the sound is in Uganda. This is how the sound is in Mali. This is how the sound is in Senegal. I love Senegalese music as well. It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
And so like these are the influences. Sometimes the influences, you're not influenced by what you understand. I don't understand Lingala. I don't understand French. I don't understand all these other languages.
Yeah.
But how they do it, there is such a rich thing of provenance. You can tell where they come from by just hearing how they play the guitar, by just hearing how they use the voices as well.
Yeah, I think Tanya Somazwai recorded her last album in Senegal. Ovuyonke, you're right, is a brilliant artist, man. Ovuyonke really is an up-and-coming rising star in South Africa. I would, as you're listening to this, I would encourage you after this interview to go and listen to Ovuyonke's one of his latest singles called Ubuhle Obungaka, featuring
Sorry, it cut.
No worries there. Yeah. Ubuhle Obungaka by Ovuyonke is a really, really beautiful song making airwaves right now. So I do encourage people to listen to that. So we're playing Upupezi next. What do you want to tell us about the song?
Upupezi is a I would call it a fable because it's not a true story. But it's a song that comforts a grandmother who has lost a son. To Johannesburg, basically. It's a story that takes place in the Drakensberg, and then this young man decides he wants to go to Johannesburg in order to search for better opportunity. Now he becomes a prodigal son to his mother, but then he is an absent father to his son. And so the premise of the song, or the point of the song, is to remind the grandmother that, hey, like, he might be gone for now, but he's gonna come back at some point. Even if he's not physically back, even in his mind, in the way in which he's living his life, he's working to come back home. And so it's that there's hope in even in what is lost, there's hope that we might regain it.
Yeah. Upupezi will be up next after the short break.
#SAFM Talking Point.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Join us this Tuesday evening at 7:30 for the latest series of SAFTA award-winning reality show, The Tastemaster SA.
Today's theme is all about bread. I love making bread. I am shaking my boots. What a page. We got this. Oh, that didn't sound convincing. I'm feeling a little stressed. I'm not going to mess this one up.
That's The Tastemaster SA. Tuesdays at 7:30, repeats Sundays at 4. Only on SABC2.
SAFM Music. Good times, good memories.
I'm just like somebody fine.
Old school sounding so good. SAFM Music, with you wherever you go. Celebrating our music heritage right here on the Friday Wind Down.
Bamfana ufana nse nobamncane kusho amalungu omndeni ekhaya sakala emhlanganweni salukazi sithi ichwane likabhubeso sahamba washonela ngale enyakatho waphephetheka okwephepha umfana kagogo nomoya Tula salukazi isazodlula ingane yakho isazowela mala Tula salukazi isazodlula ingane yakho isazowela mala pho nginesiqiniseko sokuthi ezolahleka Skotho moya wasehlane siphapame ba uthakazanga ngabhale ngishe yodwa incwadi kodwa ubhubesi engubeni uphuphe ngawo ewelela ngale kokhahlamba ephephetheka namajazi imthwalo yohamba ezanganeno Tula usazowela alap Tula usazowela alapho Tula salgas isazodlula ingane yakho isazowela alapho Tula salgas isazodlula ingane yakho isazowela alapho mhlambe namhla uzobuya lapha ephuma khona mhlambe namhla uzobuya lapha ephuma khona mhlambe namhla uzobuya lapha ephuma khona oh mhlambe namhla uzobuya lapha ephuma khona mhlambe namhla uzobuya lapha ephuma khona oh mhlambe namhla uzobuya lapha ephuma khona.
Ububezi by Jabulile Majola. What a beautiful song, man. And this became, Jabulile, a good starting point to describe the sort of sound and story you're bringing to your EP, Istifiketi. Tell us about the EP and what sort of you were doing across the body of work.
So Istifiketi is pretty self-explanatory if you understand this is Zulu. Istifiketi in English is birth certificate, and basically what I was trying to do here is introduce myself to the nation, to the world, as Jabulile Majola. It's the first body of work or full body of work that I got to release, and so I just wanted to sort of basically describe myself without necessarily being like I am this kind of person and being very direct. I wanted to do that through the way in which I was raised. And crazy enough, a lot of people actually relate either with the stories that I tell or the way in which I write the stories, because the way in which I write in Zulu specifically, it's got like an archaic sense, like the deeper type of Zulu, I'd say, or like the proper Zulu, like the Zulu that our older folk would speak. And so I wanted to, I made a point to actually do that, because I want my music to relate with everybody, to be accessible to the ordinary man, you know. And when you go to KZN, the ordinary man speaks the proper Zulu. And so Istifiketi is a way of me actually just introducing myself in that way and making sure that everybody sort of has somewhat access to who I am.
You explore identity a lot in your music, and Istifiketi sort of does quite a bit of that as well. And in it, you don't just assert your identity; you're also searching for it, right? And both, I think, the juxtaposition between asserting and searching for it is an interesting way of navigating your story. You explained earlier about why identity is such an important part of your music, talking about where you come from and what your story is. But also when you think about identity into the future, how do you string that into your storytelling as well?
I think identity is something that is very important in life generally as well. As a young man who was, as a boy that was orphaned 3 days after he was born. Knowing who I am because of who my parents are was a very difficult thing to accept. And when I talk about having gone through that process of healing, it's because I came to the point where I accepted it's okay. These certain things that have happened in your life that you cannot change, but looking at the light and looking at what God has done through that. You know how I see this as going through pain, but then that pain being used as a purpose. And what is that purpose? That purpose actually helps heal others that are going through maybe something similar. And so in the moments where I never knew my identity, because in Zululand specifically, or in KZN, identity is a big deal. You know, when you say, I am so-and-so, my surname is so-and-so, they'll be like, okay, your surname is so-and-so, from where? They want to place you, you know what I'm saying? We have a tendency to want to track exactly where you come from. And, you know, the country has a story of movement. People are moving from this place in search for better opportunities. So they will go and stay there. And some people will migrate and go somewhere else because it feels safer or whatever it is. And so people will ask you about your name and your surname, trying to track, okay, where you would have moved and to where you would have gone, you know. We have a rich history of how the Xhosa people migrated and how the Zulu people stayed, or the Sotho people went elsewhere, you know. And so when you speak about your surname, it's got a clan name, it's got a tribal name, or whatever it is, and people are trying to track and put those things in there. You find your identity in those things. But then I think what I've noticed in my exploration or in my search for identity is that there's also a point where you can find your identity within your faith. Because every time we ask the question, okay, where do I come from? The answer that we are getting is who is the person who created us and the purpose of why we were created. And so I find my identity in my faith as well, because when I go back as to who I am and where do I come from, it goes all the way back to my creator, you know.
Yeah. I'd love to hear your WhatsApp voice notes in reaction to the conversation I'm having with Jabulile, as well as perhaps your reaction to his music. The number is 086 000 2032. Give me a call, 086 000 2032. Send us your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. Uyinkosi Yamakosi is up next. This is one of those songs that I really enjoyed playing in the car driving around yesterday. We're going to take a short break. On the other side of that, that's coming to you.
Reigning champions Bafana Style are in a jubilant mood closer to the end of the season. They are enjoying every moment on the summit, but Magesi FC have an agenda to cause an upset. This is the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns FC versus Magesi FC, on Sunday 18 May, streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC 1 at 4:30 p.m. Also available on SABC radio stations at 5:30 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
We don't always talk on good news days. Today is one of those days which is not good news because of the 1 percentage point increase. Explain how you got there.
We had 17.1 million people who were employed. Now that number went down by 291,000. We are now sitting at 16.8 million people that are employed. And then the unemployed who are actively looking for employment in the fourth quarter, that is ending December, were 8 million. They have gone up by 237,000 to 8.2 million. So now that the number of the employed has gone down and the number of the unemployed has gone up, we end up with the unemployment rate increasing.
Senga Maluleke, the Statistician General.
You're listening to the National Pulse. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za. The Friday Wind Down. Kick off your weekend the right way.
Zithi hallelujah, zithi hallelujah, 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 hallelujah,
Good morning, Oliver. This is Motlatsi from Pretoria. This guy, Jabu, the music. I think I don't understand what he's saying. I don't understand the language, but is it a guitar in the background? That instrument is so beautiful.
Sanbonan, hey, quality music there. I just want to say I'm listening. Yeah, I'll stream. Mr. Jabulile Majola. Yeah, hi.
Oliver, I mean, snotentrana. I don't understand a word, but feel Jabulile. Yeah, that's a really common response to your music on our lines here. Someone else, Jeff Nong in Fentazop, saying, Oliver, your guest has a Vusi Mahlasela type of voice. Very, very, very beautiful. Yeah, this is really, really beautiful. How does it feel to hear people respond that way to your music, Jabulile?
It's such an honor. I always talk about this at my live shows. That I never take how people respond to my music for granted, because I see it as a privilege, because it's one of the most, I think, one of the most free people is the music audience, because they get to choose whether they like it or not, and they get to choose whether they participate or not. And so when people connect to the music, it's such a humbling thing, because you actually see that out of their freedom, they've actually engaged and they are relating to something, or they're taking something with them. And so it's always such a humbling experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The next song we're gonna play as we finish off the show today is Nyoniyam. Talk to us about that.
Inyoniyami is a song about a blue swallow. My father is a very, very good storyteller as well. He used to be fascinated with blue swallows when I was growing up. I wrote this basically just thinking about the resilience of that bird. And I wrote it from a perspective of a blue swallow that grows up without any parents. And it basically has to suffer in this world or grow in a world that is designed to destroy it. It learns how to escape claws of owls and jaws of snakes. But in all, it has to learn to sing the song of hope to that very world that is created to destroy it.
Yeah, and like they say, when you start seeing the swallows, it means summer is upon us. And it's time to be outside again. For those who want to listen to your music, attend your shows, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram, Jabulile Majola _ and I'm on TikTok, Jabulile Majola _ and then you can find my music on all streaming platforms, all sorts of places. And then the details are normally on my Instagram and on my TikTok.
Yeah. Jabulile Majola, thank you so much for your time and all the best, man. Really, really beautiful music. Keep doing what you're doing, and we'll always keep listening. It's been an absolute pleasure being with you this week. Thank you so much I always love standing in here on 9 to 12 on the Talking Point. It's a beautiful platform, beautiful audience, beautiful opportunities to engage you all. I'm back with you tonight at 6 p.m. for This Week Today to give you a wrap-up of the big stories of the week. From myself, Oliver Dixon, and the rest of the team, it's goodbye for now. Enjoy.
Ephazamisa izinja zomzingeli Kalikota Skihlushe vedalwe ngalolu hlubo Nyoni yam lomhlaba sozubihleke sakho Nyoni yam lomhlaba sozubihleke sakho Nyoni yam Nyoni yam umoya isitimela sembuzo yakho nami ngangiyintandane uba amaphutha neqalekiso anginengo emfana esigodini engenabani into exa kumkhofu sangivuka melingelosi sayinqanda ingozi Nyoni yam lomhlaba sozubihleke sakho 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 nami ngiyazuziva njani nami ngiyazuziva njani nami ngiyazuziva njani nami ngiyazuziva njani
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
It's 12 o'clock on Friday, the 16th of May, 2025. A very warm welcome to Update at Noon here on SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour,
we've got prosecutorial prowess and the prosecutorial arsenal and machinery to ensure that we prosecute successfully and effectively all these cases.
The National Prosecuting Authority has welcomed the judgment to dismiss Dr. Nandipha Kutumana's application to have her arrest in Tanzania declared unlawful.
You know, they all said Putin was going and Zelensky was going, and I said, if I don't go, I guarantee Putin's not going. And he didn't go, and I understand that, but we're going to get it. We're going to get it done. We got to get it done.
Well, the talks stall in Istanbul, but U.S. President Donald Trump says he wants to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin. Coming up in sport,
all of the sport this weekend, from Formula One to cycling to tennis to football and the FA Cup final. So much.
And Amajita last night doing the things there against Nigeria and into the final. But John will have all of those details and more. Please share your views with us in the meantime. 41391, that's the SMS line number. You'll be charged R150 per SMS. You can also write to us via X at SABC News_radio, or you can send us a WhatsApp voice note on 082-692-3909. Well, these and more stories coming up on this Friday edition of Updated Noon. First, though, here's the latest news with Onde Lambana.
Thank you, Sakina. Top stories at 12. NPA welcomes court decision on Magudumana's application, and Gauteng legislature hosts the inaugural boy-child sector parliament. For SAFM News, I am Onde Lambana, and a very good day. National Prosecuting Authority has welcomed a judgment to dismiss Dr. Nandipama Gudumana's application to have her arrest in Tanzania declared unlawful. The SCA verdict paves the way for trial to begin, which is set for July. Magudumana approached the Supreme Court of Appeal to reverse the decision of the Free State High Court, which